Imagine standing in the heart of a city that once thrived, its streets filled with energy, culture, and ambition. Now it's a shadow of its former self, or maybe it's still holding on, reinventing itself piece by piece. You might not see it at first glance, but beneath the surface lies a rich history full of untold stories, untapped secrets, and fascinating places that once told a story of progress, success, and failure. In today's video, we'll uncover the secrets behind Central Asia's most iconic ancient cities, the lost empires that were once the beating heart of the Silk Road. From the vibrant intellectual streets of Samarkand to the resilient spirit of Khiva, these cities are living, breathing testaments to a forgotten era. But there's more. These places hold the keys to understanding the rise and fall of civilizations and the timeless struggle for power, identity, and survival. Come with me as we dive into the fascinating history of Central Asia's cities and uncover their secrets, not just of the past, but of the lessons they have for us today. Let's begin this journey into a world long forgotten, but still waiting to be rediscovered. We've all had those moments when we walk through a city and something just feels different. Maybe it's the whisper of a distant memory carried on the wind, or the way the light falls on ancient walls, casting shadows that tell stories you can almost hear. There's a certain energy in the air, a pulse that reminds you that the city was once alive in a way you can't quite grasp. Cities change, decay, and sometimes they seem to disappear from the map. But beneath the surface, the stories they hold are far from over. They echo through the streets, in the cracks of forgotten buildings, in the very air we breathe. Now think about this. The story of Samarkand, a city that at its peak was more than just a place. It was a symbol of human achievement, the meeting point of empires, ideas, and cultures. For centuries, Samarkand was the heart of the Silk Road, a crossroads where scholars, traders, and dreamers gathered, exchanging not just goods, but the hopes and dreams of a connected world. But as empires rose and fell, so did Samarkand's power. Yet here it stands, a living monument to resilience, reminding us that even the greatest cities fade, but their stories never truly die. Take a moment and think about the cities we've never heard of. Those places once filled with grandeur, now reduced to ruins, forgotten by time. These cities, like the ones in Central Asia, aren't just remnants of a bygone era. They hold the very essence of our human journey. They are the quiet witnesses to history, places where cultures flourished, where people loved, fought, and dreamed. The mystery behind their rise and fall is woven into the fabric of who we are today. And while the world moves on, these forgotten cities remain, waiting to share their truths with those who are willing to listen. In this video, we're not just uncovering forgotten places, we're breathing new life into them. We're going to see these cities in a completely new way, recognizing that the stories they carry are just as important as the ones we tell about our own lives. This isn't just history, it's a journey through the layers of time, peeling back the forgotten parts of ourselves. Cities have a past, and some are more layered and complicated than others. It's easy to look at the crumbling facades of a forgotten city and assume it has no future. But what if I told you that there's more to these places than just ruins? That the story of their rise, their fall, and what happens after might surprise you? Take Atlantic City, for example. Once it was the crown jewel of the East Coast, synonymous with gambling, entertainment, and luxury. People came in droves, seeking thrills at the casinos, strolling the iconic boardwalk, or soaking in the glamour of a place that seemed to have it all. Atlantic City had everything: nightlife, music, beach vacations, and the kind of excitement that made it one of the most famous cities in America. It was the epitome of the American dream, a place where fortune could be won and lost in the blink of an eye. But as time passed, something changed. The grand hotels became empty, the casinos lost their allure, and the streets that once echoed with laughter grew quieter. Slowly but surely, Atlantic City became a shadow of its former self. And here's where the story takes a turn. Just when it looked like Atlantic City might be lost forever, something unexpected happened. The city began to fight back. It started with the boardwalk, a symbol of its golden days. Efforts to preserve historic landmarks revitalizing the waterfront and focusing on tourism once again. It was like watching a city wake from a long slumber, remembering who it once was and trying to reclaim that spirit. Could Atlantic City's golden age really return, or has time moved on for good? As new generations discover its past, the city begins to rebuild its identity, layer by layer. But here's the real twist. Could Atlantic City be just the beginning? What if there are other cities like it, once thriving, now faded, but on the cusp of reinvention? Think about cities like Chicago or Detroit. Both cities have gone through unimaginable transformation. At one point, Chicago was the center of innovation, architecture, and industry, a beacon of American progress. Detroit, known as the Motor City, once drove the engine of the nation's economy, but as factories closed, industries collapsed, and the population dwindled, both cities seemed like they were forgotten by time. Their glory days seem firmly behind them. But what if they're not? What if Chicago and Detroit are simply in the middle of a transformation? We often hear about their struggles, about the challenges they face, but is there something more happening beneath the surface? Could it be that these cities are not in decline, but just waiting for the right moment to redefine themselves? After all, cities have an incredible ability to evolve. What looks like decay could be the groundwork for something new. New industries, new ideas, and new leaders are emerging in these once forgotten cities. Chicago, for example, has seen its art scene explode, while Detroit is on the rise with tech and innovation. Imagine standing on the streets of Detroit today, a city that was once the heartbeat of the auto industry, now filled with artists, entrepreneurs, and innovators. The old factories, once the pride of the city, are being repurposed into creative spaces, galleries, and offices. It's as though the city is reclaiming its identity, reinterpreting its history to create something fresh. Detroit's story isn't over, it's just beginning. And Chicago, with its rich cultural heritage, continues to evolve, drawing in people from all over the world. These cities may have lost their initial identity, but what if they're just entering a new chapter, one that holds endless possibilities? This is the story of cities. They are not static. They're living, breathing organisms, constantly shifting, adapting, and reinventing themselves. Even the most forgotten cities have the potential to bounce back, to reclaim their history, and to write new stories that resonate with the world around them. When we look at these cities, we're not just looking at ruins. We're looking at the beginning of something new. And maybe, just maybe, they're telling us that no matter how far we fall, there's always a chance to rise again. When people think of cities like Detroit or Atlantic City, they often think of failure, a past filled with loss, closed factories, abandoned casinos, and forgotten dreams. It's easy to look at these places and see nothing more than a shadow of what they once were. The world often turns its back on these cities, writing them off as lost causes, relics of a time that's passed. But here's the thing. We don't see these cities as failures. Far from it. We see them as living relics, stories waiting to be told, and hidden treasures waiting to be rediscovered. These cities may not shine as brightly as they once did, but they have something that no shiny new development can ever replicate: history, resilience, and untapped potential. What you need to realize is this: we're not like most people. While the world may overlook these forgotten cities, we understand that there's more than meets the eye. These cities are like open books, full of lessons, waiting to be read. While others pass by, seeing only ruins, we step in and see the threads of a greater story, a story of transformation and possibility. We're the ones who uncover their history, their current pulse, and even begin to explore what they might become in the future. We know that cities like Detroit and Atlantic City are more than just a snapshot of decay. They are in the process of rebirth. The question isn't whether these cities have fallen. The question is, will they rise again? And if they do, will you be part of the movement that recognizes the power in their transformation? It's not about the past or even the present. It's about embracing the future possibilities, the untapped potential that lies in these cities. And that's something that very few people see. That's why you're watching this video. You're ready to discover what others overlook. You're ready to see the hidden beauty, the quiet potential, and the bold future of cities that most have forgotten. Think about it. How often do we ignore something because it's been cast aside by others? But you're not like the masses. You see beyond the surface. You understand that what looks like decline is often the beginning of something great. And that's why the future of these cities is so exciting. They are full of possibilities that few have yet discovered. They're not stuck in the past. They're merely waiting for the right people to recognize their worth. And you're part of that group. So the real question is, will you be one of the people who sees these cities' untapped potential, who understands that the best chapters of their story are yet to be written? Will you be part of the future that these cities are working toward? A future that's brimming with new ideas, new energy, and new life. If you're watching this, then I believe you're ready to join us in discovering the next chapter. A chapter where the cities that were once written off are given a chance to rise again. This is the moment we stop viewing abandoned places as lost causes, as relics of a time gone by. We stop seeing them as symbols of failure and instead begin to recognize them for what they truly are, symbols of reinvention. Detroit is the perfect example of this transformation. For years, it was written off as a symbol of economic decline, a once thriving powerhouse reduced to rusted factories and empty streets. The world turned its back on it, assuming its best days were long gone. But here's the breakthrough moment. Detroit didn't stay down. It didn't fade into the background of forgotten cities. It became something greater. Detroit is now a symbol of reinvention, a city that has refused to be defined by its past struggles. Detroit is now leading the way in urban innovation, art, and technology. What was once the home of the automobile industry has transformed into a breeding ground for creativity and new ideas. It's a city that refuses to settle, a city that rises time and time again, reinventing itself with every challenge it faces. And the truth is, we all have the power to do the same. Just like these cities, we have the power to reinvent ourselves, to push past adversity and create something greater than what came before. We are not defined by our past failures or the times we've been knocked down. What defines us is what we choose to do when we rise again. You see, these cities didn't get to where they are by being comfortable. They didn't get to where they are by simply staying the same. No, they've been knocked down and stood back up time and time again. They faced immense challenges, unimaginable setbacks, and yet here they are, not only surviving but thriving in ways that defy the expectations of the outside world. Detroit didn't just rebuild itself, it redefined itself. The same can happen for you in your own life. No matter how many times you've fallen, no matter how hard the world may have knocked you down, there is always the possibility of rebirth, of renewal, of transformation. Just like a city can rise from the ashes, so can you. The breakthrough moment is this. You are not a product of your circumstances. You are not a bystander in your own life. You are the creator, the architect of your future. When you face adversity, when you encounter the hardships that seem insurmountable, you have the choice to let them defeat you or to use them as stepping stones towards something greater. That's the lesson these cities teach us. The hardest challenges often provide the greatest opportunities for growth. And it's in those moments of struggle, when everything seems impossible, that the seeds of something powerful are planted. Think about it. The crumbling buildings in Detroit weren't just abandoned. They were waiting to be transformed, waiting to be repurposed into something new, something exciting. The factories that once churned out cars are now home to artists, startups, and creative industries. The very things that once defined the city's decline have become the foundation of its future. And the same is true for you. Your struggles, your setbacks, they aren't the end. They're the beginning of a new chapter. You have the power to take what seems broken and make it beautiful again. You are not the same person you were yesterday. Every challenge you've faced, every failure you've endured has shaped you into something stronger, wiser, and more capable. And just like Detroit, you have the ability to reinvent yourself, to take the pieces of your past and turn them into something better. It's not about forgetting your history or pretending it didn't happen. It's about using it as the foundation for something new, something extraordinary. So here's the breakthrough. The power to rise is within you, the ability to reinvent yourself, to push past adversity, and to build something greater is yours for the taking. Whether you're standing in a city on the brink of reinvention or facing challenges in your own life, remember this. The process of transformation is never easy, but it's always worth it. When cities like Detroit can rise from their lowest points and emerge stronger than ever, you too can do the same. The lesson is clear. Don't be afraid to rebuild. Don't be afraid to reinvent. Because in the end, it's not the fall that defines you, it's the rise. These cities teach us something incredible. History is not static. It's always moving, changing, and evolving. Cities like Detroit, once seen as symbols of decline, are now rising again, showing us that even in the face of the deepest struggles, there is always room for growth. Whether it's the revival of Atlantic City, the reinvention of Detroit, or the quiet transformations happening in places that have long been forgotten, these cities prove that the past doesn't define us. What matters most is what we choose to do with the present, how we respond to challenges, and how we shape our future. The stories of these cities are not just about brick and mortar. They are about the resilience of the human spirit. They remind us that no setback is ever permanent. No challenge is ever final. Just as these cities have transformed themselves, so too can we transform our own lives. The greatest stories of triumph often begin with the most unexpected struggles. And in those moments of difficulty, we can find our greatest opportunities for growth and reinvention. If you enjoyed discovering the hidden histories of cities and uncovering their future potential, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned. There's so much more to explore. Forgotten cities, hidden gems, and travel secrets that will leave you inspired and ready to discover the world in a whole new way. The journey doesn't end here. It's just beginning. Join us as we continue to uncover the stories of cities that are rising, reinventing, and reshaping their futures, one step at a time.